part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Rays podcast. And Ulises, we have part 2 of our conversation with Aram Leighton from justbaseball.com. Aram, thank you for continuing to join with us. And let's dive right into it. The list that I have of top prospects that you have put together, a lot of research and background. Taj Bradley, Curtis Mead, Kyle Manzardo, Jonathan Aranda, Carson Williams, Junior Caminero, Mason Auer, who I do want to talk about, Willie Vasquez, Cole Wilcox, Mason Montgomery, Ulises Basabe. Those are the top prospects that you have for the Rays. If you can just kind of outline what led you to this list of Taj Bradley number 1, Curtis Mead number 2, and just kind of going on through there.
Yeah. So, and also I definitely encourage people to go check it out, because I'll put a lot of the information in there that kind of led to, why I put certain guys where, and try to provide as much data context and background as I can to kind of validate the rankings. But of course, people are going to have different rankings, especially with this Rays system, because there's a big balance here of upside and proven ability, especially at the top. And then you got some guys that kind of have both. So, this is a really fun list. And what I really felt like when I looked at this Rays system is that, this is a group that, the Rays system's it's never bad. It's never really mediocre. It's usually great. It's been good recently, I think. And I think it has a chance to be great if we can see a few of these guys make the leaps that I think they can. And that's, the Willie Vasquezes of the world and the Junior Camineros, and even a Mason Auer, who looked great last year. And I'll talk about him a little bit. But I'll start with Bradley, I guess, who, Bradley is a guy that I think is almost suffering from a little bit of prospects fatigue, which is bizarre to say about a guy who's like barely 22. But for whatever reason, he's been somebody that I see, and it's all relative, but I've seen him, sinking, quote unquote, or falling behind Curtis Mead in some rankings, falling from the top 20 closer to the 30 to 40 range. And I think some of that is just a testament to Mead. But I think, Bradley, there's the question of like, where's the third pitch? Is that splitter going to come along? Blah, blah, blah. And I think that's fair and that's valid. But remember, this is a guy that reached AAA as a 21-year-old pitcher in a very loaded Rays system that it's not easy to just climb the pitching ladder from level to level. And he did that through a ridiculously good fastball with great shape and ride to it, and a slider that is nasty. He did it with 2 pitches. The splitters he started to get more comfortable with as the year went on, and I think that's a pitch that he'll be able to at least get to average, which is all he needs, and it has potential for more than that. This guy's so athletic, so young, and so talented in terms of the way he repeats his delivery and his command. I did consider Mead at number 1, but ultimately, I think Bradley's floor is so high as a starter already, and he's so young, and his ceiling is still extremely high. I feel really good about this guy, at the very least being a back end of the rotation starter who'll show you flashes and more. But I think he's got a great shot to be a number 2 or number 3 type. That can give you flashes of a little bit more. And I think we're going to see that if he can develop that third pitch a little bit further and continue to get more comfortable with that fastball command, which is already pretty good.
I want to talk about a guy who's number 3, I believe, Kyle Manzardo on your list.
Yes.
I saw MLB Pipeline a few days ago. They came out with their top 100, right? He's at 73. So my question to you regarding Kyle is this just a lack of games in the upper minors that have drafted him this low, quote unquote low? I mean, top 100. I mean, that's pretty darn good. But just, is that maybe something that prevented him to going a little bit upwards in that ranking? Or is it defensively? I haven't really seen a lot of defensive metrics on him. I did see the one thing I could find is that in 191 innings in AA playing first base, he made no errors. But as we all know, that's just subjective. So is the glove a part of why he might not be as highly touted, even though, again, top 100 is amazing, but what's preventing him to go a little bit higher on that?
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of things because ultimately evaluators and scouts in general, they don't like to put a lot of stock in first base prospects in general. So I think it's also important to compare him to his peers, right, to other first basemen, because there's always going to be a priority on the middle infielders or the outfielders or just other positions where it isn't really all on the bat. Because with a guy like Kyle Manzardo, who I love, and I think his bat is enough to justify him being a top 60 prospect. But, this is a guy that if he doesn't reach his, maximum potential as a hitter, you're not going to get much other value there, right? Like we talk about the Vidal Brujans of the world. He's not reaching his potential as an offensive player, but he could still be really valuable in a lot of other ways. So I think that's what holds, somebody like Manzardo back a little bit, who's obviously a better prospect than Brujan, but just an example there. For me, I still think Manzardo is one of the safest bats in the minor leagues. And I think the fact that he's only done it for 1 year so far, which is all he's had the chance to do as a 2021 draftee, but the fact that he has only done it for 1 year and as a first baseman, I think is a little bit of the reason why we see some hesitancy to just push a first baseman up the boards. But this is a guy that to me is a 70 hit tool. Player, which you don't see a lot of 70 hit tools anymore in today's game, especially in the minor leagues, especially from a first baseman, because power is always a priority. And the hit tool is the carrying tool. He's not a guy that's going to jump off the pages with power. I think it's above average. But when you have above average power and plus hit tool, he's going to hit 20 to 25 home runs. He's going to hit for average. He's going to walk. And I think he's going to walk as much as he strikes out. This is a really, really, really safe hitter. And for me, that's really important when it comes to prospect rankings is, while he might not bring a ton else to the table, I think he's an average defender, maybe slightly above, and he's going to be one of the safest hitters you're going to find. And that's really important to me. And I think that's what makes him a really, really solid prospect. Decent numbers against lefties as well definitely helps. So Manzardo to me is a top 60 guy, and I think it's really just the fact that he's a first baseman that's only got 1 year under his belt is the only reason why we don't see him a little higher.
There is a section of Rays fans who is both very upset about the lack of left-handed of the lack of the acquisition of a left-handed bat that could provide some pop during the offseason, and they themselves love Kyle Manzardo and think that he is the answer to that present and future problem. How quickly do you think that a Kyle Manzardo, if he keeps going the way that he is, will be reaching MLB level?
I think we could see a mid-season, maybe even a little sooner. When you have somebody that made it look as easy as Manzardo did last year, right? I mean, we're talking about 63 games in high A. He hits 329 and doesn't strike out, right? He walks as much as he strikes out, 16% and 16%. Then they move him up to double A, which the biggest jump for me is from high A to double A, or not for me, for every guy I've talked to. They say the biggest jump is from high A to double A. And he cuts the strikeout rate down and hits 323, right? And still gets on base at a 402 clip and still slugs and hits 5 home runs in the 30 games. So slightly down in the power department, but still, hitting for some power. He had 17 home runs in 63 games in high A. I expect him to go up to AAA, and I think this is going to be one of those guys that puts up even better numbers in AAA because Manzardo is so patient. He doesn't expand the zone, and he is so good within the zone. 86% zone contact is spectacular for a guy like him. I think he's going to benefit from the better umpires, from the tighter strike zone, from guys that are, not effectively wild. They're more, I think trying to get you to get yourself out. And Manzardo doesn't really do that. So I expect Manzardo to get to triple and do really, really well there and force the Rays' hand, especially if they don't have that lefty bat. I think we can see him by midseason.
With Kyle Manzardo, and that was a great question by Ulises because I've seen the ETA all over the place for Manzardo. I've seen 2023, I've seen 2024, I've seen 2025. It's just amazing where that's at. But with Manzardo specifically, do you have a player comp, whether it's a present MLB player or retired MLB player that you look at and say, and I know it's never fair necessarily to do those types of comps, but maybe an expectation for him going forward of he kind of mirrors this guy?
That's a really good question because, it's an interesting profile when you have the game today with first basemen generally being, power over hit for the most part. But I do think what we saw from Nathaniel Lowe last year could be pretty similar. I think Lowe offers maybe slightly more power and a little bit more swing and miss. But I think Nathaniel Lowe, you look at what he did last year, hit 302, 358, 492, struck out 23% of the time, hit 27 home runs. Lowe's exit velocities don't jump off the charts, but he's such a good hitter and lifts the ball well that he's still going to put up above average home run output. I think Lowe is probably the safest comp. It's just taken Lowe longer to get there. So, people might say, oh, Nathaniel Lowe. But if you look at what he did last year and even the year before that, I think that's a closer comp. I think that Manzardo is further along, and we'll get to that sooner. But I'm talking about last year's Nathaniel Lowe. I think that's what you can look forward to with Kyle Manzardo. The combination of average and power. I don't know if Manzardo is ever going to hit 30 home runs, but he can be mid-20s, maybe high 20s on a good year and always get on base at a good clip. I think he's going to walk a little bit more, maybe a homer a little bit less, but at the end of the day, have a similar OPS from what we saw from Nathaniel Lowe last year. So that's probably the closest comp I can give right now, but I think he's a pretty well-rounded hitter that you just don't find too often in today's game anymore, which is really refreshing. And part of the reason why I think he can climb quickly, you're seeing teams more frequently now promote guys that they feel like have the goods and show the polish to be able to make that transition to the big league level. And I think Manzardo, if he's not one of those guys, I don't know who
Kevin,
is.
If only the Rays could draft a guy like Nate Lowe, man, that would be what are the odds of that, huh?
Wouldn't that be crazy, especially after a second
crazy.
half with the Rangers this past season? Those are, the Rays certainly could have plugged that into the middle of their lineup. We've got more with Aram coming up, but first we have to tell you about FanDuel. This year, the only app that you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. So download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The app is safe, secure, and super easy to use as well. Best of all, you can get paid for your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON, to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So we got the Manzardo scouting report out of the way. Aram, I now want to get your take on Mason Auer. What's your evaluation and scouting report for him, considering that he was a guest of the program a week ago? And he was great, by the way. Seemed mature beyond his years and seems to really enjoy and love the game. Just what you've seen from him besides his amazing physique, I'll say.
Yeah, I was really excited to see you guys got Mason on the show. He's somebody that I was, fortunate to see in the Arizona Fall League. And I'll be honest, he was not somebody that I was following too closely. I was aware of what he did this year, but I lower levels. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, if I see him do that more in Double A this year, and then I'll really start to give him that look as like a top 10 prospect in a good race system. But after seeing him in the Arizona Fall League, go through his batting practice, do what he does on the field, do what he does in the field, I realized really quickly, I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm out here, because these are guys that you don't really get to appreciate until you see him in person. And Auer, he looks like he's built like a taller Tyler O'Neill with how muscly he is, but also still fast and fluid. But the thing with Auers, he really does have good bat to ball skills, given how strong and physical he is. He's one of the better athletes too. And again, we know the way the Rays like athletes, but again, the difference is this is a really good athlete who actually has some feel to hit that's further along than most players with his profile. He's a San Jacinto Community College product, which that is a pipeline of talent. But, this isn't your classic SEC, ACC college player who comes into low A, high A and takes advantage of more inexperienced pitching and then hits a wall in Double A. Like this was a test for him out of community college, even a loaded San Jack community college that plays a lot of good competition, and he didn't blink. And talking to some of his teammates in the Arizona Fall League, they all said the same thing. They think he can play, and they think he's a gamer, and they think he's just going to always find a way to contribute. 81% in zone contact for the power that he offers is really impressive for me. I already like his swing a lot. It's a little flat, but I think that's okay because it lets him get to the high fastballs. He hits a lot of line drives, and he hits the ball so hard that they still get out anyways. With the ability to play all three outfield spots, with what he already is able to do with the bat, this is somebody that I think is going to rise quickly. And if he puts up a good start in Double-A, could be on top 100 list by midseason with how athletic and strong he is, and the 5-tool potential that he can bring to the table.
I think Mason Auer is he's gaining some traction. Rays fans are starting to hear his name more and more. But what is a name that right now Rays fans don't even know that they should be following? If you were to kind of feed a name to Rays fandom that are listening to this episode and watching this, and of course they're just hitting that like button and they're hitting that subscribe button. What is that one name that you think is not getting enough love from Rays fans in the system that should be getting a little bit more attention?
Yeah, I'll give you a few, and you can tell me who is getting more love and who is not. Willie Vasquez is somebody that, I think is not getting enough love. At least, I saw Fangraphs put out rankings, and he was, in the 19-20 range. I think he's a lot better than that, with a lot more upside than that. Vasquez has already flashed really impressive power, good speed, potentially could stick in center, and is really projectable and physical. This is somebody that, yes, it's a wide range of outcomes, but his upside is tantalizing. I think fans are definitely well aware of Cole Wilcox, but I just want to remind some that, like, this guy's gonna look really good this year. He's polished. He's gonna make up for lost time. He is a really, really good arm. Somebody that I saw in the Arizona Fall League that, along with Mason Auer, impressed me, is more raw, is Ronnie Simon. He was acquired in that Jordan Luplow deal, and I think Simon is somebody that could be a really interesting prospect. He put up great numbers in Double-A last year as a 21, 22-year-old. And I think he's somebody that is dynamic, right? Where that's the word of the podcast so far. And it's because that's what the Rays, pursue, but he's a switch hitter who can hit the ball hard. I mean, there's at least average power here, maybe a little bit more than that. He stole 34 bases last year. He hit 22 home runs, and he seemed to get better as the year went on. He's good in the field. He can play a lot of different positions. Ronnie Simon is somebody that the Rays plucked away from the D-backs, targeted, identified, and I think this is one that the D-backs are going to regret trading. I am a big fan of Simon's, and I think he could be a really, really solid prospect who again, just doesn't really get as much attention. And then one other guy, again, someone I saw in the Fall League, ironically, the Rays sent the right guys out there. Evan Reifert, I don't know how much you guys have had discourse about Evan Reifert in the Rays circles, but Reifert's somebody that is going to be that next, like, where did he come from reliever. His slider is one of the best I've seen in the minor leagues. The fastball has enough hop to it, and he's going to strike out guys in bunches. I think that's the next reliever that they're going to bring up, and people are going to say, where did this dude come from? And he's going to be impactful. Both Reifert and Kevin Kelly, I think, fit that bill, but Reifert might be even asked.
Ooh, those are three really good names, Kevin. And I think those are very good names because they all have upside, like you said, especially with Vasquez. Like, it could go in any which way to project them. But Reifert, I think, is the one that would be getting a little bit more love just because Rays fans are a little bit more in tune with pitching, I would think. Maybe that's my bias, pitching factory and all that. I think fans usually do gravitate towards knowing the pitching prospects more than the hitters. But no, that's a great list, Kevin. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
No, I agree. And one other thing that I'll add, Aram, is a pitcher that's also seemed to rise up rankings over the last several months, and maybe you have a little bit lower than others. Mason Montgomery, what's your evaluation of him and your expectation for him going forward? I know everybody hears about Taj Bradley, and there's been, of course, talk about Cole Wilcox, and people have mentioned Colby White, who's on the 40-man, but Mason Montgomery.
Yeah, I like Montgomery a lot. Maybe not as high on him as some others because I have some concern about the lack of third pitch. I have some concern about he's got good control, but the command within the zone, hitting his spots a little bit. The slider is a pitch that gets a lot of swing and miss. And talking to some hitters that have faced him, the shape, if you looked at the pure, Rapsodo data on the pitch, it wouldn't grade out as plus. But because of his deception and the way that he's able to make it look just like his fastball out of his hand, the slider played up big time. Also, the fastball, the shape of it, while he's averages 91, 92 miles an hour on the fastball, it's got that riding life to it. It's high spin, which means it's going to get a lot of swings and misses in the top of the zone. So it tunnels off of the slider really well. It's a great 1-2 punch there. But the fastball is 90 to 92.3 at the top. Slider is good because it plays up, but he went to the fastball 67% of the time and the slider, 23%, and then mix in this changeup that he just couldn't command the other 9%. So for me, I think if hitters are able to kind of pick up the slider a little bit, there's a lot of pressure on that fastball that he already leans on a lot. If he comes out this year and starts to show a better feel for the changeup and starts to show better fastball command and somehow is able to get away with throwing it as much as he does, then maybe, I'll push him up a little bit further. He is still young at 22, but he's a top 10 prospect in the system without a doubt for me. And he's a really solid prospect, but I think the upside is a little bit capped unless we see a major change with either the quality of fastball stuff or slider in terms of the velo uptick or a major stride with the third pitch and the changeup. Right now it's more of that like back end of the rotation to, swingman reliever type profile for me, which is a little bit more limiting. And, comparing him to somebody like a Cole Wilcox is difficult. But having the year that he had last year still keeps him in the top 10. And again, he's a guy that I'm watching though, and very eager to bump up the rankings if he shows some of those things next year.
Very good. And I know we're kind of burying the lead here, but Curtis Mead, is he MLB ready right now, or is there one or two things that you'd like to see him improve upon or work on before he gets that promotion to the major league level, which we assume is going to happen sometime in 2023?
With the stick, man, like I don't need to see much more. I know it was only 20 AAA games, but Curtis Mead is somebody that I've been on, I think since the first time I ever came on your guys' podcast.
Yeah.
I think this was somebody that, I feel like I've been talking about similar to Vinny Pasquantino, just like kind of the folk hero, like fun name, unique guy, but like, don't get it twisted. He really hits, and I hope people can start to believe me. But I think now he's taking care of that for me. And everybody is aboard the Curtis Mead train, no matter who you ask. There is a question. I think if there's the one thing that maybe the Rays would like to see more clarity on, it's the defense. I think he can hold it down at third. I think he can play just fine at first, but maybe they want to see him, play a little bit more at second base, or, maybe even try the outfield a little bit just to see, what his abilities are. But I think if they're calling him up to play a little third or second and first, I think he's already shown that he can do that. I also think the bat is good enough to DH. I really think it can be that good. So I think he's ready. I assume they're going to start him in triple for a few weeks. And again, another guy that you can gain that year of control, and it's not blatant service time manipulation, because at the end of the day, he only has the 76 games, or I guess 80 games above high A in his career. But I think he's so advanced. He hits the ball so hard. And you combine the feel to hit with how hard he hits the baseball and a really solid approach overall. I don't need to see much else from him offensively, but I can understand if the Rays wanted to give him a few more weeks in the minor leagues, especially as they try to sort out the big league roster. They've got some guys on the bench that we talked about on Wednesday that, like, hey, they could be good, but they might struggle, and it might be time to look at some other options. And, I think Jonathan Aranda is very similar to Mead in a lot of ways. And, Aranda is a guy that is going to continue to get that first look at the big league level because he's already was there last year. So, I know Mead is a righty, Aranda's a lefty, but, I think it's going to have to be something that comes up roster wise, whether it's a trade or a guy gets hurt or whatever it may be. And I think Mead will be the first name called upon to come up at that point.
Now, going away from the Rays a little bit before Ulises and I have a little game for you, Aram, just across baseball, who is your favorite prospect right now? And let's take the Rays out of the equation.
So does this mean like the number one prospect for us, or like somebody
we could do the number one and your favorite if it's not the same?
Yeah. So, I think I think that it's a little bit of a cop out because he's been our top 100, or our number one prospect in our top 100. But Corbin Carroll for me is as fun and I just think incredible as they come. I think you could put Gunnar Henderson, Corbin Carroll as the number one prospect in baseball, and I don't think you could be wrong either way. And they're both just so skilled. But for me, Corbin Carroll, for his little compact, 5'9" frame, to have the plus power that he has, to be an 80 grade runner, the hit tool is pretty solid. Just the defensive ability at all three outfield spots is remarkable. And this is a guy that I think is going to take over Major League Baseball. I think he's going to be one of those next young guys that really, really makes an impact. I think Ellie De La Cruz is another one of the alien types that it's just how do they do what they do? Reds prospect Ellie De La Cruz is just on another planet in terms of his ceiling as a switch hitter, a guy that hit a home run over 500 feet last year and as a plus runner. But I would say my favorite prospect right now is probably Pete Crow Armstrong, because this guy, one spoiler alert I'm going to give on our top 100 update, he's going to be our only and our first 80 grade defender. I did a thread on Pete Crow Armstrong just a few days ago, maybe a week ago. Time is a blur at this point. Cubs fans
it was pretty funny. I remember, and then a Cubs fan, I think, got pretty upset, wasn't it?
It was the Mets fans were in my replies getting all upset because if you remember, they traded Pete Crow Armstrong for 2 months of Javier Baez. And look, it's just my job to talk about which prospects are good. I got no horse in this race. Is it a little funny? Of course. But the first reply was F you to the thread, which I thought was hilarious from Mets fan 101. But that thread, if you go over to my Twitter, because I can't do it justice in terms of explaining it, he is one of the best defenders I've seen in the minor leagues. He's probably the best defensive center fielder I've seen in the minor leagues, right there with Michael Harris, who was in the same boat, and we've seen what he's done at the big league level. And the bat is good too. I mean, this guy hit 16 home runs, he had 10 triples, stole bags. I had him on the podcast as well. He is just the man. He's super cool, laid back California kid that Intel just loves the game, plays hard, humble. And so when you can match the personality with the way they play, that's a guy I definitely have some bias towards. I know I'm already giving you too many names, but I'm going to give you one more just because I love this guy so much. Joey Weimer. He is the next Hunter Pence. He hits the ball so hard, but he plays like his hair's on fire. He's with the Brewers. He's got the long hair, blonde hair. He has the craziest stance you'll ever see, the biggest leg kick. He's 6'4", and flies, plays with reckless abandonment, and he is the most unique dude I've ever talked to. I asked him what he does off the field. He says he plays Minecraft and watches Family Guy. He's just a really unique guy that is so much fun to watch. So I know I gave you a few names, but final answer will be Pete Crow Armstrong.
Oh, that's pretty good. I mean, every time we have you on the show, I think both myself and Kevin and our listeners just become smarter. So I have to tell you, no, really, you're a great asset to this podcast every time that you're on. So thank you for coming in. Kevin, would you like to play a game?
Yes, always.
Okay, so this game is called Name That War. This is something that we play every Friday where we trade off names and we try to go into our baseball archives in our brains and guess what that no longer active player's career war was according to Baseball Reference. Okay, so do you want to play with us?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's
do it. And by the way, Aram, you're welcome to gerrymander and steal this idea if you ever want to use it on your
about
podcast.
To say I might steal this for the Just Baseball show and give you guys a shout because this is a lot of fun.
That's all we ask. It's a shout out. It's a great game.
Always.
And another a switch on it too is you take two players and whoever you're asking has to guess which player has the higher career WAR. Player A, player B, whatever.
I like that.
Yeah. And okay, so for today's first name, because I believe we have two names, correct, Kevin?
Yes, I have a name as well.
Okay, so the first name will be center fielder for both of you, Chris Young. What is Chris Young's career WAR according to Baseball Reference?
Oh no.
I know.
This could be any
this
number.
How we have fun. Yes.
This could be any number on the face of the earth.
100%, except maybe not 100, but yes.
All right. So we say the guess out loud. Who goes first, or how does this
Yeah,
work?
Kevin,
Yeah,
you wanna-
Aram, I'll let you go first. And sometimes we kind of try to work our way through it of like, hey, we think this guy played so many years, had so many All-Star appearances, maybe he had so many home runs, whatever.
If I'm
it
not
may
mistaken,
be.
good defender. I think had a couple nice seasons, a lot of seasons, if I remember correctly. I don't think it's going to be a big number. I don't think it's going to be a big number. I'm going to go with 12.5.
All right,
Ooh,
he's locking that in. Are you gonna prices
Young.
right this thing, Kevin?
Yeah, more or less. I'm actually going to go, I think he had at least 15. I'm going to go 15.
We got to give it to Mr. Weiss. 16.5. 16.5. You had the 0.5, though. That was pretty good. He's a one-time All-Star. He played 13 years in the bigs, and his slash line was 235, 314, 428. That's a 743 OPS, a 95 OPS plus. He did have some pop, though. 191 home runs.
Wow.
Very cool. Yeah.
Very good.
More than I thought.
Yeah, more than I thought, too.
All right, my guy, I used to watch this guy play when I was living in Southern Indiana, and we got Cincinnati Reds games on. I won't give any more details than that. Brandon Phillips, what is his career WAR?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good name. Man, I really enjoyed him playing. He was so fun. He was such a fun guy. I'm
And
thinking
we'll let Arm go
It's going to be
first.
high.
Yeah.
Man, well, first of all, Brandon Phillips, the man. I totally agree. The glove flips, the between the legs flips, all the plays he made up the middle should be a bonus 10 WAR for his career.
Yeah,
but,
he had flash.
judging that's probably not the case. I think it's high. He played a long time. Man, and he had some all-star flashes for several years. I'm gonna go with. For whatever reason, the number 28 is speaking to me, but I think it's a little higher. I'm going to go with 32.
Okay.
Fair enough. I liked everything that you said. I still think he's going to get knocked around because I think the analytics did not like. I think he's Vizquel. Like, he did all the things that you were like, how did he do that? But then the analytics, the defensive, I don't think they were really friendly towards him too. So I'm going to knock him off from 32. I'm going to give him a 22. What do you got, Kevin?
Okay. Brandon Phillips, for the record, played 17 years in the bigs, 4-time Gold Glove winner, Silver Slugger, 3-time All-Star. Yeah, he did have a string in there, 2010, 2011, 2013, where he made the All-Star teams with the Cincinnati Reds. Over 2,000 hits, 211 home runs, 275 batting average. Not too shabby for a second baseman. But his career WAR, Arm, always go with your first instinct. 28.4 is what he had. Yeah,
I don't know why the number was 28 was speaking to me.
That was good. That was really, really good. Okay. So, I mean, this is a pretty great game. If you
I love
this is a pretty great game if you're an obsessed baseball fan, and I think everybody here on screen is an obsessed baseball fan. So it goes to show that we would enjoy this.
100%. I love it. Looking forward to giving you guys a shout out on the Just Baseball show when we duplicate this for our Friday episodes, because that's when we do the three of us. So
cool.
We'll definitely give you a shout on that. But that was fun, man. That's gonna haunt me now that I didn't trust my first instinct. But hopefully that's a lesson to all the listeners out there. Trust your first instinct, because for whatever reason that was saved in my brain somewhere, I think.
There you go.
It's all good. And also want to give you a shout out. Arm, is there anything you want to promote on justbaseball.com, whether it's podcast content? We know about the Rays top 10 prospect list, but anything else coming up that you want to shout out?
Yeah, just the Just Baseball show, our podcast. We're really excited to continue to grow that and up our YouTube presence there too, with a little bit more post-production added to what we're doing on our episodes, and the Call-Up podcast as well. A lot of interviews with prospects. You guys do a great job, by the way, of interviewing the prospects as well, while covering the big league team. But for whatever you guys might miss, or if any listeners are interested in the minor leagues beyond that, I'm always looking to interview prospects all season long and all off season, and of course race prospects included in that, on the Call Up podcast and the Just Baseball show as well. And you follow us on Twitter at Just Baseball. I think it's just BB_media, if I'm not mistaken. We had to change our handle, so I got to get better at remembering that one off the dome. But thank you so much for having me on, and it's always a lot of fun talking to you guys. And anytime you guys want to talk more Rays, talk more big leagues, talk prospects, whatever, I'm always here.
No, thank you. And again, listeners out there, after listening to this episode, I recommend that you go out and check out justbaseball.com. Check out all those podcasts as well. You won't be disappointed. So, and if you have any questions, I think Arm's also very active on Twitter. So if you have any prospect questions, whatever it may be, he'll respond to you. So with that, hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you next week.